Welcome to Dialogues for Change. Life is not a void to be filled. It is a plenitude to be discovered. Today, I would like to share with you some thoughts on magic, on what magic can teach us about perception, and maybe also creativity. So the thoughts I would like to share with you are taken from Alex Stone's book, Fooling Houdini. No matter how enlightened or Zen-like, however practiced way of seeing, will never completely eradicate our mental glitches, because the organizational mechanisms by which cognitive illusions, such as inattentional blindness, arise, are hardwired into the machinery of the mind. Usually, when we are fooled, the mind hasn't made a mistake, wrote magician and inventor Jerry Andrews. It's come to the wrong conclusions for the right reason. The ability to concentrate for extended periods on complicated tasks is a signal virtue of the human brain. But the flip side of being able to stay focused and ignore peripheral distractions is that we don't always notice things outside the narrow spotlight of our attention. What we're good at as adults is weeding out and inhibiting all these other parts of a scene, explains Alison Gopnik, a psychology professor at the University of California, Berkeley, and author of The Philosophical Baby. Children, on the other hand, aren't nearly as good at ignoring peripheral distractions. As a result, they have a much wider attentional focus, which may help explain why magicians often have a hard time fooling them. I myself have slayed Nobel laureates with novice moves, but a group of 9-year-olds will often rip apart my best material. There may be a prosaic reason for this, which is that kids, being shorter on average than adults, are privy to certain bad angles and exposed lines of sight that adults typically don't see. In general, magic tricks are best viewed from above or head-on. That said, a lot of experts will also tell you that it has to do with the Aikido-like way in which magic flips our expectations and our ability to focus against us. Because kids don't know what to anticipate, they tend to pay equal mind to everything, making it harder for magicians to execute secret moves without being caught. One of the things that magicians are really good at is getting people to consciously attend to one part of a scene, says Gopnik. We know that children are much less good at doing that. As a consequence, they are open to parts of a scene that aren't available to adults. It's as though gullibility is an acquired behavior, and children have not yet learned how to be deceived. The adult brain may be limited, but we can learn a lot about it by studying its limitations. For one, blind spots such as those uncovered in Mack's laboratory nudge us towards a deeper understanding of how the brain constructs an internal representation of the whole world from multiple threads of incomplete information. It quickly becomes apparent that these mental representations, for all their stability and richness, are subjective constructions cobbled together from patchy, mismatched and ambiguous fragments that are themselves subject to distortion, embellishment and even outright fallacy. They are, to a certain extent, illusions. Sipping a V8 on the long northeast slope of the flight back home, 30,000 feet above the Grand Canyon, I thought of Arthur C. Clarke's famous observation that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, and how this saying also holds true, perhaps especially so, in cases where the technology in question is the human brain. Every truly great idea, be it in art or science, is a kind of magic trick. A colleague of physicist Richard Feynman once referred to him as a magician of the highest caliber. Even after we understand what they have done, he said of geniuses like Feynman, the process by which they have done it is completely dark. But what many of these great thinkers seem to have in common is a love of games and a belief that we do our best work when we're fooling around. As Isaac Asimov once put it, the most exciting phrase to hear in science, the one that heralds new discoveries, is not "Eureka, I have found it," but "That's funny." Frank Lloyd Wright conceived falling water while playing with toy blocks, Leonardo da Vinci was obsessed with puzzles and games and tricks. When Feynman found himself in a rut after the Second World War, he realized it was because he'd stopped having fun. I used to enjoy doing physics, he recalled in his memoirs. I used to play with it. Less than a week later, he was eating at the university cafeteria and he saw someone toss a dinner plate in the air. The peculiar wobble of the plate intrigued him. Shrugging off the skepticism of his peers, he began tooling around with the physics of dishware. Years later, he described this as a major turning point. There was no importance to what I was doing, but ultimately there was, he wrote. The diagrams and the whole business that I got the Nobel Prize for came from that piddling around with the wobbling plate. Not surprisingly, a similar spirit animated David Bayer and Percy Diaconis when they first began their work on the mathematics of card shuffling. We started out just playing, Bayer told me. We were just amusing ourselves. As young children, we learn almost exclusively through play. Why should adulthood be all that different? Once thought of as a static organ, the adult brain turns out to be remarkably plastic. Fresh brain cells sprout from injured tissue. New connections form as our neurons rewire themselves. A recognition of the importance of play, not just during childhood, but well into adulthood, lies at the foundation of the new science of neurobics, or brain fitness, a rapidly growing field that aims to keep a graying population mentally sharp with a daily dose of puzzles and brain teasers. The secret to keeping your mind young, we know now, is to continuously revisit the conditions you experienced as a child, when everything was new and mysterious, and you hadn't yet figured out the rules of the game. Magic is about recreating these conditions. It lets us suspend adulthood and retrieve, however fleetingly, that childlike sense of astonishment that was once our resting state, but fades as we age. As fun as it is to fool people, it's just as fun, more so even, to be fooled. There's nothing I enjoy more than seeing a trick and having no clue how it's done, because it means there's some new principle at work that I have yet to learn, and behind that a creative mind at play. This is the feeling of communing with genius, not unlike learning a new concept in physics or listening to a beautiful piece of music. Being fooled is fun. Two, because it's a controlled way of experiencing a loss of control. Much like a roller coaster or a scary movie, it lets you loosen your grip on reality without actually losing your mind. This is strangely cathartic, and when it's over, you feel more in control, less afraid. For magicians, watching magic is about chasing this feeling. Call it duped delight, the maddening ecstasy of being a layperson again, a novice, if only for a moment. Just before Vernon died, comedian and amateur magician Dick Cavett asked him if there was anything he wished for. Vernon's answer, like his magic, was simple. I wish somebody could fool me one more time. I hope you enjoyed these magical inspirations and that they will inspire you to let yourself fool, let yourself be intrigued, let yourself be puzzled by what is going around. Discover all the marvels that are hiding there and that we sometimes do not even notice anymore. So I hope this little thoughts and experience has inspired you on this Sunday, 7th of April 2013. Thank you.